Hey everyone, Daniela Sigia here, and today we're going to talk about what I like to call the customer service sweet spot. And that is this little pocket of energy that is somewhere in between caring so much that you're the strongest performer on your team to not caring enough to let it burn you out. When it comes to customer service, one of the great things about the job is that it's really low impact, right? You're not standing over a hot stove or doing something physically dangerous or grueling. It's quite a cozy environment in your little cubicle with your little chair. Often you can even do it from home. So customer service is kind of a cushy job. But the hazard with customer service, besides repetitive motion injury from maybe typing, for example, or sitting too long staring at a screen, those are all hazards you need to be careful of. So for sure, get up and stretch and all that stuff. But the real main hazard with customer service is burnout. And that's twofold. One, it's because you're having the same conversation all the time on rotation, and that gets really monotonous, and that in and of itself can be draining. But also understand that the majority of people that are calling a customer service line, if they're not just answering questions or ordering stuff, is because they're having a problem. And often a dissatisfied customer is an unpleasant customer to deal with. And if it happens that you work in some kind of a customer service function where the majority of your callers are disgruntled, that can take quite the toll on you over time. So, and often even if you're not in that environment, even if you're the best company ever that has the best customer service ever and your clients are normally satisfied, you're always going to have that little demographic of unsatisfied customer, and nothing you can say or do or whatever will please them, because some people just like to be miserable. And when you're on the receiving end of that kind of personality, that could really take a toll unless you've been able to develop what I call white space. White space is like an emotional buffer, right? Where you're able to empathize with your customer, but at the same time not be affected by the energy space that they're in and what they might be projecting at you. And many customer service agents make the mistake of taking things personally. You know, sometimes, even though the complaint is coming at the company, because you're only representing the company, right? They're not actually attacking your character. They're attacking the character of the company that you're representing that company. And sometimes it's hard not to take that personal. But sometimes the personality on the other end could give you a personal attack that is quite hurtful. And when that happens, it's easy to get your back up, because it's like, hey, man, I'm just doing my job. You know what I mean? What you're complaining about is outside my realm of control. You know, so maybe a client was expecting a check and it didn't go out in time, and then they take it out on the customer service agent, who has no say in when a check goes out, for example, yet they get the personal attack because they're on the front line. And I often hear my customer service agents say, I'm the one that has to deal with him. It's easy for you guys, but I'm the one that has to deal with him. And it's like, right, because that's the job. So what you have to learn how to do is, first of all, accept that you're going to have a certain percentage of people call to give you grief. That's their joy in life, is I'm going to call, I can't wait to call that company and let them have it. And then they want the bragging rights story to tell everybody over dinner or in the coffee room how they just blasted company so-and-so. Not realizing that when you're blasting company so-and-so, that's actually a human being at the other end of the line. But if you know that going in, and you know that I'm going to have to face, my quota of bullshit, really is what it is, then you're able to create this little bit of white space, so that when you hear that person go off on you or go off in general, you can remain completely unaffected. And to you, it's nothing more than wah, 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 wah. And then you can respond kindly, right? And in a good customer service way, because you're not defensive. But as soon as you're put on the defensive, then that conversation now is going to become hostile, or has a higher risk of becoming hostile. So if you can remain unfazed regardless emotionally, then you will do far better in customer service. You'll get higher retention, you'll get better sales, just because your personality can take it. And a customer who's been inappropriate will appreciate the fact that you took it and didn't give them grief. So, for example, your company may say to you, and I'm not advocating here that you should willingly take on verbal abuse, right? But I've worked at companies where they had a zero tolerance for customer service being sworn at. So, if a customer used a swear word, technically, as a customer service agent, I had the right to say, I'm sorry, I will not continue this conversation because we have a zero tolerance for profanity and verbal abuse. We actually had a script that we were allowed to say, that we had to repeat. If anybody used a swear word in a conversation, we could say this line and hang up the phone, and we had the right to do that. I never did. And because my customers knew, because anytime they had called in the past that happened to them, they knew I'll get hung up on if I swear. And then they would swear in a moment of frustration and then be like, oh shit, sorry, God, you know what I mean? And because I took it with a little bit of sense of humor and I understood and didn't hang up on them, let me tell you, every time they called the company, guess who they called? They would ask specifically for me. And in that specific company, no one ever got asked for. I even had a customer once send me flowers in a call center just because I was kind to them and tolerated a little bit of bullshit that no one else would have tolerated. And then there's another thing that you can do that will also help you with job security in terms of retention and your numbers and things like that. And that's making friends in other departments that normally you have competition with. So, for example, when I was in the insurance company, although I was in sales, I often had to deal with the underwriting department a lot, right? And the accounting billing department. So these departments traditionally did not get along. So there was this kind of us versus them, especially with the underwriters, because I'm trying to make a sale and underwriters are looking for the reasons to deny a sale or deny a policy, and which denied me commission. So there was this famous us versus them between those two departments. Well, I made a point of making friends in the underwriting department. And then instead of fighting them, what I would do is say, teach me. What is it that you're looking for as an underwriter so that I know what to look for as a salesperson and mitigate the things that you would have an issue with so that every policy I put in is going to make your job easier as an underwriter, but is going to guarantee that my policy gets approved. So by having friends in the underwriting department, I learned what underwriters needed to see. So because I knew those things, every policy I put in got approved. So where all the other salesmen and customer service people were going back and forth and arguing, whatever, I was putting stuff, doing stuff like that, easy. So by making friends in competitive departments, you're able to pull off sales things and customer service things that no one else can do. And then when that happens, what ends up happening is you become the point person for problems, which management love those kind of people. Because, a manager, they have enough on their plate. So the whole reason they have customer service people is to reduce the amount of phone calls and reduce the amount of problems they have to deal with. So when you become that customer service agent, that's the gatekeeper, that all of a sudden management never gets problem phone calls anymore because you're able to mitigate every single problem that comes in, you become indispensable. So by learning your product, by learning your company, by learning the different departments and what they need and how they operate and how they depend on each other, how one department complicates things for the other, when you start to learn those kind of building blocks, well, guess what? That's executive management material. And if you can start demonstrating that stuff in your customer service role, your superiors will see that you're the one that solves the problems before they have to deal with it. And again, that makes you indispensable. But how do you do that without burning out? How do you cultivate that white space? And that's not always easy to do because sometimes the insults get personal. So for example, in my situation today, I ended up fielding a call for customer service, so they didn't have to deal with it. They had a lot of stuff going on, so I just took the call. And it happened that this client knew that my father is in ICU and he's having complications from cancer. So it's kind of serious, very emotional time. And this week has been so grueling on me. You have no idea. I'm sleep deprived, it's horrible. And my customer service team, they've seen me go through this all week. They've watched me be tortured. And today, a client that was dissatisfied got on the phone and actually said to me, If I don't care what your father's going through right now, I don't care that he might be dying, business is business. And when that was said, it was like, and I didn't even, honestly, I didn't even feel a thing. Like it didn't even, of course, business is, I get it. I'm a business person. I'm a vice president. At this point, my blood is ice. You know what I mean? I don't even get emotional. So I get it. So when he said it, I didn't even take offense, because where he's standing, this customer had every right to be angry. Was that a low blow? Sure. That was a terrible low blow. But you know what? He was right to be that angry, and I don't blame him for being frustrated. So you know what? He earned the right to sucker punch me, put it that way. So when he said it, it was like whatever, and then he knew it was over the line. So then he even said, I'm being rude. Like, I know I'm being rude, but whatever. And it's fine. And I didn't even make a thing out of it. It was like, buddy, I don't blame you. Whatever. You got your punch in. I'm glad you feel better. We're going to fix this problem. And it's cool, but that's why he sticks with us. Because anybody else would have made it, how could you say that? And that's so horrible. And then walk through the day feeling bitter and resentful, and instead I was almost amused at the length this guy was willing to go to. So then when this became a teaching moment for my customer service staff, who often take it very personal. When someone says this didn't get done, you don't know what you're doing. Where they're like, hey, I take ownership in my job, and my staff really does. My staff treat this job as if it's their company, and we're like one big family here, and this is a family business. So, and I'm talking about my day job here, not my consulting stuff, but in my day job, which is textile waste diversion, it's a family business. So they treat it, and we treat them as if they're family. So for them, it's personal, and they really work hard, and they see how every single team member on our team works really, really hard. So when somebody becomes rude or critical over an innocent thing that could happen, because things happen in business, right? Something gets missed, whatever. They take it very personal, especially because my father right now battling the cancer and having all these problems. He's stranded in another country, getting hospitalized in another country, and he's not stable enough to come home. So right now it's like heavy duty. So for them, it's very personal. More personal. They take it harder than I do, because I'm so weathered in customer service. I'm so weathered, I don't feel anything at this point. So this was the teaching moment to say, it doesn't matter how raw or how low of a blow the punch is. If you have that white space, you don't even feel it. I honestly, this wasn't something I had to transcend or get past or forgive. I felt nothing when he said it. So when my staff saw that I could be this cold, even when someone is trashing me at the dying dad level, then they can't get emotional when someone says, you didn't send me this on time, or your whatever department didn't get me this on time. It didn't, and we're sorry, and we're going to fix it. You know what I mean? But you don't have to take it personal. Get your ego out of it. So keep your ego in it enough that you are, you have that amazing retention. You have the motivation to create bonds in other parts of your department so you can make things work that normally there's conflict in. Be engaged enough to really care that your customers are unhappy, and that you care that your company that you're representing is held in high esteem. Sure. Care to make sure that you do a stellar job all the time, but not in the egocentric way of needing deference from your clients. You know what I mean? Have enough of that white space to be able to hold space for the frustrations of your customers, for, and the disappointments that end up happening, and not to take it personal. So if something gets missed and even you get hit with a low blow, don't take it on personally as a personal character attack. Take it on as sometimes people get pissed, and when they're pissed, sometimes people cross the line. And not that you have to be, a willing victim of verbal abuse and hostility. Certainly there should be boundaries there. And I'm not advocating that because you're in customer service, you need to be abused. I'm just saying that if you can develop a bit of a thick skin and hold space for people's frustrations, you will do a better job and not be affected. By the time I reach management, by the end of my customer service career, I would be amused by people's tantrums, or people would cry and I'm going to go home and I can't take this. You know, other service agents would be like that. Someone would go off on me and I would find it amusing. I could make a mixtape of people's verbal abuse and dance to it, you know. But I'm not saying you need to be that callous, but it does serve you very well. And but again, don't take it to the extreme that not to care that somebody's angry, and you certainly wouldn't laugh at their tantrum or, you know, whatever it is. You always remain considerate, diplomatic. You know, diplomacy goes a long way in customer service, but that inner amusement, that inner white space is going to keep you from burning out over time. Have a great day.